There is that beautiful progress, y'all. Oh my. Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to my Twitch channel. I am Alice of KHR Arts, and I am so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight we are going to be continuing our beautiful Fantasia drawing. I'm so here for it. I'm so excited. It's so pretty already, and we're going to make it so much more pretty. And this is the surprise that I was telling y'all about. I added these two cute musician centaurs in the distance, and one of them is a deer because I love deer. I think they're so beautiful. We added this cute little surprise because in the original drawing, I did have a pair of like musicians and I just didn't know how to fit them in. And I was like, I really want to have them in the drawing. So here they are. So cute. And I name my layers, otherwise I get lost and then I'm like, oh God, I'm coloring on the wrong layer area. I always do this to myself where I make these teeny tiny little details. And I've been having way too much fun with my new obsession, Minecraft. I hope y'all have been enjoying my little YouTube video updates with that. It's just, it's absolutely exploded, like just how much I've built. And I haven't really been playing for that long. I think this is like week 2 that I've been playing. So it just isn't very much time. And I've already built so much. It's so much fun. It's so addictive. And it's so relaxing too. This part of the process is relaxing where the baseline art is like already drawn, like the drawing is already drawn. I just have to like color it. Like that's relaxing. The actual like sketching and making it be a drawing part is very stressful. There are times where I'm like just literally angry at my sketchbook and I'm just like, be a drawing. And this is why line art is amazing. It's basically the same as the pen tool in Photoshop where you just go bam, colored in. This is my color palette up here that I have so that I can keep referencing back to it so that I don't have to keep trying to figure out, oh my God, what color is this? So she's got kind of a similar color palette going on with Centaur on the swing. Gonna be very detailed, very much like the depression drawing that we did recently. That one was very detailed as well. I want her to be like all browns, just very earthy. Really pretty. Do we have any blue up here? No, we don't. So that will be new. We're gonna pick a blue. Ooh, this is a pretty blue. Now we color everything in. So pretty. The Disney movie Fantasia, one of the little vignettes is like the Greek gods and Greek mythology, and they have all the beautiful centaurs. They're like, frolicking around, and there's satyrs and pegasi and unicorns, and it's just so colorful and cheerful, and I loved everything about it. I wanted to draw it. I'll do more drawings like this of like centaurs just because I think they're so pretty. This violin was a lot of fun to draw. It's a lot of swoopy curves going on. Unfortunately, I am not a musically inclined person. I remember as a kid, there was a brief time when I wanted to join bands, and thankfully my parents were like, no, we are absolutely not doing that. Because that would have lasted all of like a week and then I would have been like, I hate this. Because when we were like required to do that stuff with like recorders, those like annoying little flute things, I could not figure out how to read sheet music. Like it's just completely foreign to me. I was like, I don't understand this. So yeah, I would have had no hope of being any sort of musically inclined person. I just have no business participating in that kind of creative pursuit. And I have so much respect for people who can play instruments, who can sing, like all that sort of stuff. Like I take my hat off to you because I don't know how to do any of that. And just color right over that. Hooray. And that's just a big part of working as a creative person is you just have to like learn how to juggle and just make time for all the different stuff that you have to do and then also make time for the stuff that you want to do. it's a lot. It's being a professional creative person is a 24/7 job. And I knew that going in. Like, I've been working like this for a decade now, actually, now that I think about it, because I feel like 2011 is really when I could first really consider myself to be like a professional creative person back when like I was modeling and stuff because while I started doing my tours in 2010, I was still in college, and so I couldn't like fully dedicate myself to it. I had to juggle between like going to class and all that stuff. So like most of my like tours were really only to like local Midwest places like Wisconsin and Indiana and stuff, and a couple of times to Ohio. And it would just be for like the weekends, and that was it because that's all I could spare because I was going to school. But 2011 was when I graduated from college, and that's when I was able to really fully devote all of my time to modeling and going on these massive tours. Like some of the longest ones were literally like a month long, where I was on the road for like a full month. And that's kind of how my life has evolved since then, is that, oh, this is just, it's my life and my work. This is just what I do all day, every day. These are so pretty. I don't really have like a plan for the colors that are happening here. I'm just kind of doing whatever with it, having a fun time. Let's see, what color do I want to make her? Because she's going to be pink. They're going to be black and white. Don't really have a lot of variety of colors going on. Oh my god, y'all, you know it'd be so stinking cute is if we make her that blue. Oh my god, let's be obnoxious. Let's be obnoxious and make her blue. Let's see what that looks like. Oh my god, let's make her be blue. I know I said previously in one of my drawing things that like you don't want to like call attention to things with bright colors unless you like want to draw attention to things with bright colors, but oh my god, I think this would be so pretty, especially because we already have so many of the centaurs are going to be very subdued colors. I think this would be really fun. So we're going to do it anyway. Let's see how that looks. Oh, it actually looks cute. What do y'all think? Do you like her? Like, she's so blue. I love it. I like it. I really like it. And let's make her skin be a little bit light blue too, because we're going to make the princess centaur, like, her skin's going to be a very light pink. Let's make her really light blue. Let's make it a little less obnoxious so that it's not like, blue. And that's how like some of the centaurs were in the original Fantasia movie. Like some of them were like purple and blue and pink when I was in high school, and I spent as much time working on my writing and my art as possible. And as I've said in the past, like I got in trouble for it a lot because I would like draw in class instead of pay attention to what I was supposed to be paying attention to. I just wasn't very interested in what was going on in a lot of my classes in school. To be fair, I was exempt from taking honors classes, and this like started when I was in elementary school. Like I found out about it when I got older, and I was like, wow, that really was that I wasn't allowed to be a part of the honors classes because I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so they treated me like that like made me not as smart as the other kids that were like in the honors classes. So I was like always put in the like regular classes. And a lot of times I found it very boring because it was saying it's beneath me sounds like really like do, but honestly, it just kind of was. Like the material was way too easy and the classes were just asinine, honestly. So, for example, one of my English classes in high school that I remember vividly, because I've forgotten a lot of the stuff from high school too, just because my brain is like, we don't need this useless garbage information anymore. We're just gonna forget it. But this one English class that I remember in particular, the teacher was all kinds of awful. And I would get in trouble a lot because we would be given a book to read, an assigned book that we were supposed to read and like talk about in class and write papers on and do assignments on and all that stuff. And on average, like it would take us like 2 months to deal with the book, read the book, talk about the book, write about the book, all that stuff. Like we would usually spend like 2 months on a book on average. And like, okay, fine, that's whatever. But they would assign, like, okay, you have to read chapters blah, blah, blah through blah, blah, blah for tomorrow. And then they would give you in class time to read the book, which is fine because there are kids who read really slowly. So giving them the extra time, that's great for them and whatever. But I'm a really, really fast reader. I don't need that extra time. So I would literally read the entire book within like the first week, if not the first few days of that part of the course, just because, again, the classes were too easy for me and the material, the books, were too easy for me. And so I would just read the whole book, and then during the time in class that they would give us to read the chapters or work on an assignment or whatever, I didn't need that time. So I would spend that time reading something else or working on my writing or working on my artwork or whatever, just doing something else. And I was never disruptive. I was very quiet, just in my own little world, doing my own little thing. And I would constantly get in trouble where the teacher would come over and be like, "What are you working on?" And I was like, "I'm working on this." And they're like, "Is that," they'd be like, how teachers will be so condescending. And I'm like reading on Facebook and on Twitter that this is still a huge problem where teachers just have this power complex and they just treat students like garbage, where they just want to lord all this like power over them. And sometimes students like pee their pants in class, like even in like high school and stuff, because the teachers like don't want to let them get up and go to the bathroom like a human being, like all sorts of ridiculousness. But I digress. He would come over and just be all sassy at me, like, how dare I not read the boring book he assigned us for the 15th time or something. And he'd be like, "Oh, that's not for this class. Why aren't you, reading the thing for this class?" And I'd be like, "Well, I already read it." "Well, you should read it again." "No. I'm not going to read it again." And I would straight up tell him that because I was just like, "No, I'm not going to read your crappy book more than once. I do not need to. Once I have read a book, I retain it. Like, the book is in my head. I'm good. I read it. Boring, and I hate it. I know it. I can take the test. I can write the paper, but I'm not reading it again." And like he would get like all nasty with me and be like, "Oh, well, we'll see when the quiz comes." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, we'll see. Sure, dude." And then I would get an A and repeat. And this would happen like every other day where he would just get sassy with me. And I'm just like, "Dude, we do this like every week and I keep getting good grades and I clearly know the material and I clearly already read the book and I just don't want to read your stupid book again." That's why I used to work on other stuff while I was in class a lot, because I was just like, this is so boring and I don't need to pay attention to this. I already understand the material. And plus, not only that, they would like give you downtime during the actual class to work on what was essentially assigned as the homework. And sometimes I would take advantage of that and I would do the homework, or I would do homework even from like a different class or something. On top of it, we had a required study hall, and then we had lunch, which I would spend in the library most of the time instead of the actual cafeteria because it was just so loud and obnoxious, and no thank you to that. And so I had so many opportunities like during the day to get my homework done that I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm good. I don't need even more time to do my homework. Like, it's fine." So I just work on other stuff that I wanted to work on instead, and the teachers would like get all butthurt and take it personally. And it's like, "Well, I'm sorry, you're the one who assigned this super boring, awful book. Like, that's not my problem. I'll sit here and I'll write your paper and I'll take your test, but you can't make me read this god awful book more than once. That I will not let you do." It wasn't that the books were boring or that I hated them because they were easy, because there are plenty of books that I've read that I've really enjoyed and they're super easy. I don't know if it was just the school that I went to. This is like a normal thing with like a lot of other schools, but they would make us read these really weird books that just made me very uncomfortable. And I would hope, I think, because of just some of the things that I've seen online about how people are like are petitioning for curriculums to change and stuff and stop being so just like male centric. But for example, I don't remember what the book was called. I think it was Montana, and it was some year, like Montana 1976 or something like that. It was some year. It's a god awful book. And And the book, the main character is this teenage boy. He's like, I think like 16 or 17 years old or something like that. And he like talks a lot about how he has this crush on his, like, I don't know if it's his like nanny or like she's like the housemaid, or like it's not very clear in the story what exactly her role is, but she's not related to him. And she's an adult. Like, she is an adult. Like, she's I can't remember because again, the book was super vague about it. She was somewhere like in her like 30s or her 40s. Like, she was not like, ooh, I have a crush on the older babysitter or something like that. Like, no, she was like full on adult. And it would go into graphic detail about this crush that he had on her. And like, there was even a scene where like he like snooped on her while she was in the shower, and then he like about it and stuff, and that was described in very graphic detail, and it was just really, really gross and really, really unnecessary. And I'm not one for censorship. Like, you can have scenes like that in a book. Oh, they make sense for the story and they're necessary and stuff like that. But it was just really gratuitous. It was just really gratuitous and really gross, and it was just not necessary for it to be that graphic. And on top of it, like, this was assigned as high school reading. I was just like, is this even appropriate? Like, this is really gross. Also, if I were to choose what I want to read on my own time, that definitely would not be it. Like, if that's your jam, good for you. It is definitely not my jam. It was just a lot of the books that were assigned were like that, where it was just stuff that I just did not want to read. It was just gross, or it was really boring. That's the thing, is I'm trying to remember right now, like, what some of those books were, and they were so god-awful boring that I just can't even remember them. Just super stuffy, boring stuff that they forced us to read, and that once I took the quiz and I took the test and wrote the paper, my brain yeeted it and was like, we don't need this useless crap anymore. Goodbye. Oh, y'all, she looks so pretty. But she looks so pretty. Oh my god, this was such a good choice. I'm so glad that I did this. And she like doesn't look too obnoxious, especially because the scene is going to get like so much more colorful in a hot minute. Like, once we get them all drawn in and we start doing the background, like, it's going to get so more colorful, so she'll like stand out a little less. All right, so let's take away our little gazebo here and start doing the line art for the beautiful. So excited to draw them. And I know this looks really confusing right now because like the gazebo line art is like on top of her, but once we get everything all colored in, it's going to make a lot more sense. And this is, again, part of why it's so important for me to label my layers so that I don't get lost. There are some nights that I'm sitting at my vanity and I'm doing my makeup and I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to do my live stream tonight. And then I get into it and I'm like, I'm so glad I kicked my butt and I did this. I'm having so much fun. I'm having so much fun just playing with super bright colors for this. And we're going to have to, like, after we get this all drawn, we're going to have to do some copy and paste magic and some erasing and stuff because as you can see, we need this part of the gazebo to be behind her head, then we want these curtains to be in front of her head. So we're gonna have to finagle a bit with that, but we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. And I think I'm gonna have her be like super true to like being a zebra. I think I'm gonna have her skin be like white. Yeah, in high school, I took a lot of art classes. It was also a really big escape for me in high school. So I spent a lot of time in the art room, and my junior and senior year of high school, I was even able to swing it where I was able to start having my study hall like in the art room instead of in the actual like study hall classroom area. And on the days, for whatever reason, when I couldn't be in the art room, I would just go to the library. And I never really understood why, but for the study hall like hours and the lunch hours and stuff, the library would limit how many people they would let be in the library for that amount of time, and it was like a really ridiculously small number. Like, it was like a really huge library. Like, our school has a really big library, and they would only let, I think it was something like 10 or 15 people in there, which was really dumb. And so I would literally run, like freaking just book it from whatever class I had right before lunch or right before my study hall to get in line for the library, to be as close to the front of the line as possible, to have the best chance possible to be able to be allowed in the library. And then once you were in there, like you could just be in there all day. Like they wouldn't come check on you. Like they didn't care. They just basically barred you how many people were allowed to come through the doors. And even before school. So like I took the bus in high school up until I got my license my sophomore year, and then I started driving to school. But when I took the bus, and even when I started driving to school, because by then it just became part of my routine, and me and Ophelia and like the people that we hung out with, we would all just like hang out. We had a particular table that we hung out at in the library before school started. And what was weird was like before school started, a lot of other people would also hang out in the library, and you could be noisy like at the beginning of the day, but then after that it was like dead silence all day in the library. And the librarians at my high school were just so awful and mean and grouchy, and they just hated us. Absolutely hated us. And it's like, yeah, I get it. We were like, rambunctious in the morning and stuff, but in the afternoon when we were like going there to escape and be able to be there for like study hall and lunch and stuff, we were quiet, we were being good, and they would still just be like rah at us. But I would also work a lot on my writing and my artwork while like hanging out in the library like that, or like I said, I would get my homework done so that I didn't have to do it when I got home from school. When I was young and crazy, when I was like 19, 20 years old, going to community college, oh my God, that was just like a very chaotic time in my life. So I was going to the local community college, and this was after I had gotten rejected from the California college that I had wanted to go to. And after I washed out of the online computer animation school that I was doing, not for lack of trying, I made a good effort and found out I am just not good at computer animation, that is just not for me. So it's kind of like, okay, we got to figure something else out. And I went to community college to just kind of get my gen eds out of the way while I regrouped to like figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my life? And during that time, I was like, I'm going to rebel and I'm going to be a bad kid and I'm going to do all the things I was never allowed to do. So I would just like hang out with my friends and stay out until like 3 in the morning, just being wild and crazy. And wild and crazy was wild and crazy. Like, my wild and crazy is a little different from most people's wild and crazy. So, like, I party way harder now. Like, I partied harder in my mid 20s all the way up to I'm 32 now. Like, I party so much harder as an adult now than I ever did as like a teenager. Like, it was just like, okay, that's cute. I was just like hanging out with my friends at their houses until like 3 a.m. and we were like playing Rock Band and Guitar Hero. Remember back when that was a huge thing? Like that's what I did. And then occasionally we'd be like, oh no, someone who's 21 bought us booze. Woo! Like, and have some really crappy alcohol that whatever is the cheapest available. That was usually what we had, and it tasted awful. And I didn't really like I only got really drunk once during that time period, and it was for St. Patrick's Day because I was just determined to be like, it's St. Patrick's Day, I'm gonna get tanked because that's what you do. And that was a bad time. That was a bad time, y'all. That was never again. Oh my goodness, that was the drunkest and sickest I have ever been, and just never again. That was a life lesson that night. But other than that, like I would only drink like one glass worth of like alcohol on those nights when we did that, just because like over the course of the whole night, like the equivalent of like a glass, I would basically just sip on something because it just tasted god awful. And yeah, and we just hang out and be stupid and play video games, or because it was the suburbs and there's literally nothing to do in the suburbs except I don't know what it's like now because I'm all old and an adult and stuff, but back in my day when I was a teenager, what we did for fun was if you had a car or if you had a friend who had a car, and I never drank when I was driving. Like if I was driving, I never drank ever. It's one of my policies. Just I actually have had some friends who died because of drunk drivers. But like one of the things that we would do is we would just all pile into my Jeep and we would just drive around. Like there was no destination. It was just drive around in the car and just listen to music really loud. And we would play this game called Padiddle. The variation that we played, because I know there's different versions, was where a Padiddle is a car that has one of the headlights out. And so what you do is you shout Padiddle and you punch the roof of the car. And whoever punches the roof of the car last has to take an article of clothing off. And whoever has the most articles of clothing on by the end of the game wins. And let me tell you, playing that game while driving is complicated. Being the driver, you are not exempt from the game. You have to play. And so, yeah, doing that while driving was... We were also just driving around in the suburbs. So at most, we were driving like 30 miles an hour. Woo. Town we were in. That's just kind of where we stayed, just driving around in circles in that one area. So that was what we did for fun. There were a couple of times where we would like go to the 24-hour Meijer, because it was open 24 hours. Where else are you going to go at like 2 a.m.? And we would just be obnoxious. We would go to the toy aisle and we would just like hit each other with bouncy balls. Like not like bouncy balls like the super balls, but you know those like little kid balls, and they make that like nice like bonk noise. We would hit each other with those and just run around with tricycles and stuff. And it was like that's just what kids did in our town. So like the people at Meijer were just very used to it. They were just always kind of exhausted. Like, can you just clean up when you're done, please? That's all we ask. And we did. We always weren't the only ones who did that. Like that's pretty much what you did in the suburbs, because there's nothing really else to do. Because when you're not 21, there's really nothing to do in the suburbs. And that was also one of the frustrating things, was the cops in the suburbs have nothing better to do because they're always just like skeeving around trying to fill their quota and stuff. And we would get pulled over all the time. All the time. Like they just prey on teenagers, just like trying to pull them over because they think they'll find something. Because it's not like speeding or swerving or doing anything particularly crazy. It's the police are just like, hey, being kids. Pesky kids. I was also especially rebellious because that was like the first time in my entire life where I really spent like days at a time not going back to my house. So like just staying out and staying at friends' houses, staying at other places and stuff. And I just felt so rebellious doing that because I was always the kid that had like the really strict curfew. And I didn't have a lot of friends in high school because nobody wants to be friends with the dorky kid that's not allowed to go anywhere and not allowed to hang out with anybody. I'm going to do all the things and have all the fun and see all the people. And I'm really glad that I did it then. It was important for me to get good grades at the community college, but the classes weren't like hard, at least for me anyway. Again, like I'm one of those kids that's just like good at school. They weren't hard, so it was pretty much like as long as you showed up to class and you turned in the homework, that was kind of it. Like it was not hard. And as long as I did that, like I could just be a crazy weirdo, which I did to the fullest. So I got all of that nonsense out of my system that by the time that I went to Columbia, like I didn't really have any interest in partying and going out and doing stupid stuff. Like I just focused on my studies. Like that's pretty much all I did at Columbia was I was either in class or like doing my modeling stuff or I was doing homework. That's kind of like all I did. I didn't really do anything else. I didn't really like go out and party. I didn't hang out with people a whole lot. Like I was just like school. And I'm glad that I did that and got it out of my system at community college because it was way easier and it was way cheaper. So I had the wiggle room to be able to do stupid stuff. We're working on one of the zebras right now. She's so pretty. We did a beautiful blue centaur and a beautiful deer in the background. They're so fun. I don't know about y'all. Like, yeah, I'm getting pretty stir crazy just being here all day, every day and just working on stuff and not going outside and not doing anything. And I do want to go out and do stuff. But like I said, as much as I really want to get back into the party scene and be at Berlin and be with the loud music and, you know, get drunk and all the things, like I'm not so sure once I'm actually in it again if I'm gonna be like so into it anymore, just because I've had so much solitude and quiet. Like I don't know if that's gonna be really overwhelming for me or not, because I'm one of those introverts that have tricked everyone into thinking they're an extrovert, where it took me like a while to be able to get comfortable being in that scene like that. So, like, when I first got into drag, like, I actually had a code word with my friends where I like told them, I'm like, I'm turning into a pumpkin. And that was for them to know where I was literally just gonna peace out. Like, I was just gonna leave. There wasn't gonna be the round of like, oh, say goodbye to everybody. I was just like, bye. Just goodbye, leave. Where did Alice go? Oh, she turned into a pumpkin. She left. Like, that was kind of how it was. And I slowly over time built up my tolerance where I was able to stay later at the club. I was able to tolerate more like high social situations because I would just get overwhelmed at like the number of people that I was hanging out with and people that I was talking to and like conversations to keep track of. And then on top of it, like all of the stimuli, the loud music, all the people, the dancing, there's a lot going on. It took me a while to be able to build up my tolerance and to be able to like enjoy that. And obviously, I have no way of being able to measure that with the pandemic. I have no way of knowing. I mean, I'm sure, like logically, I'm sure my tolerance for that has gone way down. I don't know how I'll feel about that because even when I was a little kid, like I was very much a very like solitude and quiet kind of person where I just spent hours just by myself in utter silence, reading books, drawing, playing with my toys, just being by myself. Being in high social situations can be very overwhelming for me, and I've kind of had to like trick myself into it as an adult in order to navigate the worlds that I want to be part of. And that's also a big part of being a professional creative person is that you have to build up that tolerance to be able to put yourself out there and really connect with people because that's a big part of why my finances have just been absolutely destroyed by the pandemic is one of my biggest incomes was selling my books and my art in person at conventions because people connect with you in person. Like you can talk to them face to face and they can like hold your book or they can like directly look at your art and stuff like that. And so I had to build up, well, by that time, I had already been in the club and drag culture for so long that by the time I got to conventions, that was a piece of cake. But you have to build up your tolerance for that level of high social interaction. Because even at a convention, I mean, it's not a nightclub per se, but there's still like, there's so many conversations going on. There's so many people. There's so much to keep track of. There's a lot of stimuli going on. It's just a lot and it can be very overwhelming. And even back in my heyday of doing conventions and doing drag shows and all that stuff, like I would have days where I'd just be like, I just want to hole up in my room and just not be a person. I need to recharge after all that. And yeah, I did that. I did that a lot. I had to balance that out for my own sanity. And I feel like I've kind of swung the pendulum all the way to the other extreme here with the pandemic, where it's like, that's all I have is solitude and silence and being alone. So I'm kind of like, oh my God, where are the people at? In the comments, if y'all want to tell me what are the things that you're really looking forward to doing when the pandemic is over, or something that you're surprised that you missed, something that you didn't realize, oh wow, I actually missed that sort of thing. I am a very organized person. I don't think I would have made it this far as a professional creative person if I was not as organized as I am. There is so much hard work behind the scenes to being able to live this lifestyle. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make is online, like all you see is just the shiny, fun, creative parts of working as a creative person. You don't see all of the behind the scenes, not fun admin stuff that you have to do. And I feel like a lot of people get blindsided by that. And that's why on my social media, like I try to post about that kind of stuff so that people have a better idea, like a more realistic idea of how this works. Like, especially back when I was doing conventions and stuff, like I would actually make posts about, like, yeah, this is all the stuff that I have to do in order to make a convention happen. Or, yeah, this is the aftermath. Like, the day after a convention, I'm exhausted and I have 8 million things that I have to do post convention and all that stuff. stuff, just to show people like, yeah, as exciting and fun as it is to work like this, you have to put in the time and the hard work in order to be successful at it. And that's where a lot of people fall apart, is they think it's just super fun, draw a happy picture, and then people just randomly are just magically like, here, take money. Stuff like that is very rare. Like, it's usually you have to work your ass off in order to make all of that happen for yourself and be able to be like, draw a happy picture and pay my bills doing it. Back in convention days, my day after the convention was trying to finally get some sleep, get all my laundry done, so much laundry after a convention, and then do inventory where I have to go through and see, okay, here's all the stuff that I sold, here's all the stuff that I still have to be able to sell at the next convention, and then having to decide, do I need to put a new order in for more books for my next convention, or do I need to go out and get more supplies to make more of whatever this art thing is in order to sell more of it. And the logistics of, okay, the next convention is on this day, when is this stuff going to arrive by, or when will I have the time to go out and be able to acquire these things that I need, and managing all of that, those moving parts with time frames. And there have, unfortunately, thankfully not very frequently, but there have been a couple of instances where I've gone to conventions where I've just been like, yeah, I'm sold out of this item, it didn't arrive here on time, there's nothing I can do about it, you'll have to wait till the next convention or buy it online. And I don't like that happening, that you potentially lose a sale, because that's an extra step that people have to do, and people do not like extra steps. And just managing all those details, it's a lot of hard work. And then on top of it, managing all that and still taking the time to then actually still be a creative person, still working on my writing, still working on my artwork, still actually creating the very things that I am selling. And that's another pitfall that a lot of people fall into, where they get so busy with the actual work aspect of working as a creative person that all of a sudden they look around and they're like, I haven't written or drawn anything in months. Oh my God. They've just been so caught up and busy doing all the things with the stuff. And it's very common. That happens a lot. When I was at Columbia, there were so many people who got into writing who really weren't passionate about writing. They just, one, thought it was an easy A, which hilarious, absolutely hilarious. But two, they also had this really ridiculous notion where they were just going to be the next J.K. Rowling, or they were just going to be the next Stephen King or whoever, and that they were just going to make oodles of money. And also, who invented this nonsense of that all writers live in a luxury cabin at a very nice, tranquil lakeside, and that they can actually afford to live in a place like that, or would even want to live in a place like that, and all they do is just write all day, and they don't have to worry about anything else. They just have to sit at their computer or sit at their typewriter and just write, and that's all they do, and they're just a writer. Like, who came up with that nonsense? Because that is not what being a writer is like at all. And there are so many people who actually think that, and I'm just like, no, it is fantasy land. That is not how this works at all. Like, are you kidding me? No. There were so many kids that just absolutely washed out of the system because they thought, oh, I'll just be a writer and it'll be easy. It's just like, oh, honey, no, that is not how this works. I'm sorry. No. Because as I've told so many people, being a writer is so much more than just writing a book. There's just so much that goes into it, because it's like, yeah, you have to write the book, and then you have to edit the book, and then you have to market the book to publishers and agents, and then if you get lucky and you get represented or you get published or whatever, then you have to deal with whatever their standards are, and then you have to promote the book. You have to start all over and write some more and all that. It's just, you have to wear so many hats and you have to do so much work. You have to be a writer and promoter and a marketer and a salesperson, and in a lot of cases you have to be like your own graphic designer and social media manager, and you have to do like all the things with the stuff. And so this nonsense of that we're just like hanging out in solitude in our little cabins and all we do is just write, and then it's magically a book and we're just magically rich and famous, like, girl, no, I'm sorry, that is not how this works at all. And I'm sure there are plenty of other creative communities where there's a lot of people that think that kind of nonsense, where they just think, kind of like with modeling, where people for some reason thought that it was just like the America's Next Top Model show, where they really, honest to God, thought I was being schlepped around to all my photo shoots and fashion shows in like my own limo, and they thought that I like was being flown all over for all these photo shoots and whatever. And I'm like, No, girl, it's me and my Jeep. It's me and my Jeep driving places. Love it so much. She is so pretty. I had so much fun sketching this, y'all. She is so pretty. I love zebras IRL. I think they're so cute and so pretty. When I was little, I actually wanted a pet zebra. I went through a phase where I wanted a pet zebra, and then I found out that they're mean and they will kick you and they will bite you. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't want a zebra anymore. Still wanted a pony though. Before this whole culture, like Twitch and YouTube and like watching other people play video games was really a thing. I actually used to make some of like my friends or like my boyfriends and stuff. Like I would buy certain games that I knew that I couldn't play, but I really wanted to experience. And I would literally be like, I want you to play this game so I can watch you play it. I literally did that. And I think that that's why this whole culture is really successful, is because there are a lot of people, whether it's they don't have the skills to be able to play a certain game well, or they don't have the time, or they don't have the resources, whether it's the money or the space, whatever have you, that they can just go and watch somebody else do it and get that enjoyment, I think is really awesome. And I'm really glad that this whole culture sprang up. Like, I think that it's a really great way for people to still be able to enjoy something, even if they don't want to enjoy it directly. There we go. There is that beautiful progress, y'all. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's looking so gorgeous. And I just want to thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. So thank you so much for tuning in. Bye bye.